Hi everyone, let's start with today's session with the series which we are going to start with AWS Cloud Practitioner exam, and we will be going through daily basis a set of multiple choice questions. So let's start with the very first question, which will be on your screen, which is this one. So the question says that a medical research startup wants to understand the compliance of the AWS services concerning HIPAA guidelines. Which AWS service can be used to review the HIPAA compliance and governance related documents on the AWS? So as the question suggests, it is related with some compliance. So let's start with the very first option which is available on the screen, which is AWS System Manager. So basically, AWS System Manager is primarily used for operational purpose, and it is does not provide any compliance related documentation. So system managers are generally used in the parameters you can have. So these kind of service, AWS System Manager is not responsible for the compliance related stuff. Next thing is the AWS Trusted Advisor. So this particular trusted advisor provides certain optimization reports related with the performance, cost, and security, but particularly compliance or governance documents it does not provide. So the next option is AWS Artifacts. So AWS Artifact is the service that is responsible for central resource for actually accessing the compliance related information for AWS, including all the reports such as HIPAA reports, SOAP reports, PCI reports, and ISO reports as well. So this is the particularly on-demand service which provides AWS's compliance documentation and agreements, making it suitable for compliance like medical research at startups and some AWS HIPAA compliance also. So this is one of the option which we can go with. And the last option is AWS Secrets Manager. So it is basically used in the applications to provide some security credentials and storing the API keys as well. So it is just used to store the security related stuff for your application. So the correct option for this question would be AWS Artifact. Okay, let's move to the next question. So the next question says that a startup wants to set up its IT infrastructure on the AWS cloud. The CTO would like to get an estimate of the monthly AWS bill based on the AWS services that the startup wants to use. As a cloud practitioner, which AWS service would suggest for this use case? So it is a question related with the AWS cloud for those companies who want to use the AWS. So as a AWS cloud practitioner, what would you suggest for estimating a monthly bill which would that company would incur? So the first thing is AWS budgets. So AWS budgets is basically used to set the alerts for your AWS account. For example, if you have a budget of $100, it would be $100 estimation, and once you cross this budget, you would get an alert over the mail. So this is one of the use case of the AWS budgets. Next thing option is the AWS Cost Explorer. So this particular service, AWS Cost Explorer, allows you to explore the past cost of your service and also do the some forecasting in the future related with your usage of your services. So it is just that service that provides the past records on which if you have used AWS. Next thing is the AWS pricing calculator. So this particularly service, AWS pricing calculator, is a tool provided by the AWS for cost estimation purpose. For example, if you want to use a new service like S3 bucket or EC2 service for your project, you can use the AWS pricing calculator to estimate the monthly cost or the yearly cost, and you would if you find suits that your monthly bill is under the budget, you can use that service. So AWS pricing calculator is mainly used to estimate the cost for using that service. So the last option is AWS cost and usage reports, which is AWS UI. So the last option says that it particularly provides the detailed billing for your existing service. So for example, if you have used certain amount of services 2 to 3 4 in the count and you want to get a complete usage report, what and where your bill has gone into, so you can use this cost and usage report. So the correct option for this second question would be AWS pricing calculator. So let's move to the next question. Now the next question says that which of the following statements are correct regarding the availability zone AZ? Specific characteristics of Amazon Elastic Block Store EBS and Amazon Elastic File System Amazon EFS storage types. So the first option says that EBS volume can be attached to one or more instances in the multiple availability zones AZ, and EFS file system can be mounted on the instance in the same availability zone AZ. So Amazon Elastic Block Store, if we talk about, or the Amazon Elastic File System. So Amazon Elastic Block Store is a service which is generally used in the case of the EC2. If, as an example, we can take the EC2 instance as an example, and we can attach EBS volume to that EC2 instance. So the few of the features or the characteristics of the EBS volume is that it is only available to a particular AZ. So if our server is in the AZ-A and the EBS volume resides in the AZ-B, so server can't be connected to the elastic volume. So the cross regional, the cross AZs is not possible in the case of the elastic block store. And particularly one more characteristic about the elastic block store is that it can be only attached to one of the instance and not to one to many. For example, if a single EC2 instance is already attached with the elastic block store, that particular elastic block store cannot be attached with another EC2 or any other device. So this is the thing. So as per the option is says that EBS volumes can be attached to one or more instance in the multiple availability zones, so it is not the correct option. So and the EFS file system talking about, so if we talk about the EFS file system, it is over the network and it is accessible over all the AZs, and multiple machines can also be connected with the EFS file system, which is elastic file system. It is the network level store, network level, the communication is happening over the network. So the option A is not good for fitting this to be correct. So the next option is B, which is EBS volume can be attached to a single instance in the same availability zone, and EFS file system can only be mounted on instance in the same availability zone. So one of the characteristics of the EFS is not matching, that it can only be mounted on the same availability zone. It is not like that. So EFS file systems can be mapped to different AZs, EC2s as well. So option B also not suits for this use case. The third option says that EBS volume can be attached to one or more instances in the multiple availability zones AZ, and EFS file system can be mounted on the instances across multiple availability zones. The EFS is correct, but the EBS says that one or more instances can be attached to the multiple availability zone, so it is not like that. EBS volumes are attached to the single instance only. And the last option says that EBS volumes can be attached to a single instance in the same availability zone or the AZ, whereas EFS file system can be mounted on the instances across multiple availability zone. So both the characteristics which as mentioned in the option D is matching with the properties of the elastic block storage or the Amazon elastic file system. So as both the properties matches exactly what we are expected to be correct, so the option D for this question is correct. So let's move to the next question. So the next question says that which of the following is correct regarding removing an AWS account from the AWS organizations. So the first point says that the AWS account must not have any service control policies SCPs attached to it, only then it can be removed from AWS organization. So this particular option is incorrect. Why? Because this particular SCPs, which we call service control policies, if they are associated with any accounts in an organization, actually their presence actually do not prevent any from account being removed. So for example, if you want to remove the any account from the organization, this SEP's policies does not play any role here. So the key requirements. So if we talk about what is the only requirement for any account to be removed from the AWS from the organization, is that it should be the standalone account. So if a standalone account is there, it can be removed from the organization. Let's explore the option B, raise a support ticket with AWS support to remove the account. So this particular option which says that requirement of the support is not likely we do. So this kind of activities can be handled by the user end as well. So the only thing which we need to do is to move that account as a standalone account, and it would be easily removed. The third option is the AWS account can be removed from the AWS system manager. So system manager is not used for this purpose. It is used for the managing resources and not for controlling the AWS organization membership. So whether it is part or not, AWS system manager does not have any control over it. So the last option is AWS account must be able to operate as a standalone account, only then it can be removed from the AWS organization. So this option is correct. To remove an account from the AWS organization, it must be the criteria to operate as a standalone account. So it means that registered payment method and a root user with a valid email and ID and password, and billing information should be configured correctly. So these are the basic requirements for removal of the AWS account from any organization. So the option D, which is saying that to operate as a standalone account, is the correct one. So the next question number 5 is, a web application stores all of its data on the Amazon S3 bucket. A client has mandated that data be encrypted before sending it to the Amazon S3. Which of the following is the right technique for encrypting the data as needed by the customer? So the first option says that encryption is enabled by default for all the objects written to the Amazon S3. Additional configuration is not required. It is true that Amazon S3, the data stored at rest, is fully encrypted and no additional information needs to be done. So this is you can say that already being done by the Amazon S3 bucket. So enable the next option says that enable client-side encryption using AWS encryption SDK. So this option says that client-side encryption. So for example, if the data is coming from the client side and the client is requesting to be encrypted, so we can use the AWS SDK that provides the encryption techniques. So during the client side also we can do the encryption. So by enabling client-side encryption using AWS encryption SDK, we can achieve this. So option B is suits fine for this question. Let's see other options as well. Enable server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys. So it is saying that Amazon S3 managed keys. This particular feature which we are talking about, it encrypts the data on the server side after it has been sent to the Amazon S3. So actually this our requirement is a client needs to be doing the encryption part before sending it to the data to the Amazon S3. So this is not our use case, so this option does not satisfy. And the last option says that enable server-side encryption with AWS key management service or keys. So this option is not satisfied because we are talking about the server-side encryption using the AWS KMS. But the thing is that data will be encrypted after reaching the S3. So our requirement is to get the encrypted data before sending it to the Amazon S3. So that is also not possible. So the last option, which is enable client-side encryption using AWS encryption SDK is the best option to go with this option. So let's move to this next question. An e-commerce company has deployed an RDS database in a single availability zone (AZ). The engineering team wants to ensure that in the case of an AZ outage, the database should be continue working on the same endpoint without any manual administrative intervention. Which of the following solutions can address this use case? So the first option says that configure the database in RDS multi-AZ deployment with automatic failover to the standby. So this option is relatively explaining what the question is asking for. So if there is a multi-AZ deployment, for example, if there is a deployment of the RDS having multi-AZ feature on, it means that one of the RDS instance would be in AZ-A and another as a standby instance would be in AZ-B, and any outage occurs in the AZ-A, and because of that RDS instance goes down, a standby instance would come up and meets the requirement, and we don't need to do any failover thing manually. It is automatically being taken care by same endpoint via AWS RDS services. So this option is correct to go with. Let's explore the next option as well. So the next option number B says that deploy the database via Elastic Beanstalk. So actually the Elastic Beanstalk is a platform as a service. It is used for deploying the application, not specifically databases. It does not provide any you can say that high availability or automatic failover features on its own. We need to configure it at the RDS side. So the next question, next option is provision the database via cloud formation. So this is also incorrect because it is used as an infrastructure as a service, and it is used only for provisioning and managing the AWS resources. Yeah, it is true that AWS cloud formation can deploy the RDS databases, but it does not it is not sure that it inherently do high availability or automatic failover capabilities like RDS multi-AZ has. And the last option is configure the database in the RDS read replica mode with automatic failover to the standby. So the last option is that talking about the read replica, but read replica is not used for these cases. Read replica is used to divert the traffic of the primary instance to reading purpose only. So this is not the correct option. So the correct option is only option number A, which is configure the database in the RDS multi-AZ deployment with automatic failover to the standby. Moving to the next question number 7. Which of the following AWS services should be used to automatically distribute incoming traffic across multiple targets? So AWS auto scaling, this particular service auto scaling is used for either vertical scaling or horizontal scaling of the EC2 instance or the target points. So it is just used to manage the loads, not distribute the traffic. Next option is AWS Elastic Load Balancing, which is ELB. It is this particular service is used to divert the traffic coming to this load balancer endpoint to various target points. So this is one of the option which the question is asking about. So it automatically diverts the traffic to the correct endpoint which is being configured to the Elastic Load Balancer. So yeah, it is true. This option is correct. Coming to the third option about the AWS Elastic Beanstalk, as we already know, it is only the platform as a service. It automates the application deployment and manages resources like EC2, RDS and ELB, but it particularly not is responsible for traffic distribution directly. ELB is the only service which is responsible for distribution of the traffic. And the last one is the open source service. This particular service is used for search analytics and log analysis. It does not handle any, it is not related with any incoming traffic. So the correct option is AWS Elastic Load Balancing. Coming to the question number 8, a startup wants to provision an EC2 instance for the lowest possible cost for a long term duration, but needs to make sure that the instance would never be interrupted. As a cloud practitioner, which of the following options would you recommend? So we are talking about the lowest possible cost for a long term duration. When any long term duration is we talk about in the AWS, only one thing we go into the mind of the reserve instances. So long term means reserving the instances that is particularly used for your case. So as we are discussing EC2, or whether it is RDS or some other service which supports the reserve instances option, so we, for a long term point of view, we always go with the reserve instances. So EC2 reserve instances is the correct option for this. Let's explore the other options as well. So the other option says that EC2 spot instances, it is used for the it is just used for the low cost, but it is not for the longer period of duration. It is just used for the requirement if you have the urgent workloads, and then you can have a spot instance request. It is available for you for the lowest possible cost, but it is only for used for a specific workloads and a specific workloads, not for the longer duration of time. So this is not the correct option. Coming to the third option, which is EC2 dedicated host. So it is just a physical server we are talking about, not the long duration of the EC2. So it is not like that the correct option. So let's move to the next option, which is EC2 on demand instance. On demand instance in itself, the general purpose instance which we talk about, so it can be used for the long term, but it has its own costing. So by only reserving the instance for the longer duration, we can reduce the cost of the EC2, and there is separate on demand cost. If you go with the on demand pricing, it would be relatively 30 to 40% more as compared to the reserve instance. Both the features are same, only we get a pricing change when we reserve the instance for the longer duration. Coming to the next question, which is talking about the DDoS attack, which AWS service can be used to mitigate a distributed denial of service. So talking about the question, option number 1, which is Amazon CloudWatch. So Amazon CloudWatch is generally used for the monitoring purpose, and the next option is AWS key management service, which is generally used for managing the keys. And AWS system manager. AWS system manager, if we talk about system manager, it is generally used for automation, configuration and management and maintenance of AWS resources. And the last option is AWS Shield. So AWS Shield is the only service which is used to manage the distributed denial of service for all your application. So this is the correct option. AWS Shield is the correct option for your use case. Coming to the last question for this day 1 series, which of the following entities applies patches to the underlying OS for the Amazon Aurora? So AWS customer by using AWS System Manager. So talking about this option, the AWS customer by using AWS System Manager, this is incorrect. Why? Because this AWS System Manager can only be used to manage and automating the patching of their EC2 instances. However, for Amazon Aurora, customer do not have actually as a RDS user. If we talk about of the database RDS instances, and if we go with Amazon Aurora as an engine, so we don't have a direct control over the operating system. It is self-managed by the AWS. So all the OS related patches are handled by the AWS only. So any particular service is not responsible to manage the OS for any of the RDS instances. So coming to the option number A, it is incorrect. Coming to option number B, the AWS customer by assisting on into the instances, that is not possible. We don't do any SSH to the instances on which RDS is launched. So this is not the correct one. Coming to the third option, the AWS support after receiving a request from the customer. This is also not the case. Why? Because the basically the concept here is that only OS related stuff, as we are using it as a platform as a service, only we are responsible to manage the instance. That's it. Underlying OS is not in our control. It is managed by AWS team automatically. So the last option says that AWS product team automatically will be handling this case. Yeah, it is true. Handling the patches and the maintenance of the underlying operating system are basically taken care by the by this AWS team only. So, it ensures that database is secure and up to date without requiring any particularly customer action. So, all these questions which we are discussed here today, uh, we can say that it could be the part of the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. We will be continuing with these questions almost every day. So please go through this video, prepare your notes about these questions. So the last slide says about the answers. Just cross check with your answers. If you have any doubt, just mention in the comment section, and I will be there to resolve your doubts. So yeah, thank you everyone for your time and watching this video. Please subscribe this YouTube channel for more AWS related questions. Thank you.